Full stack web development. Full stack web development is front-end plus back-end plus a database. That's all that means. A full stack web developer can write front-end code and back-end code. So this usually means they write a lot of JavaScript along with a back-end language such as Python. So in this example, Python executes on the server and JavaScript executes on the browser. And every time you hit a website, there is a server doing some sort of processing, somehow behind the scenes. Now, one thing to note is a backend language can dynamically create HTML, CSS, and JavaScript as well. Let's talk about the stack. A stack is a term we use to talk about all the technologies that a company is using, and stacks can be different. So two popular stacks is LAMP and MERN. LAMP is a common stack. It's Linux, Apache, MySQL for the database, and PHP or Python for the backend. And MERN is another common one. This one is pretty much all JavaScript. It's MongoDB, Mongo database, Express, React.js, and Node.js as the backend language. A full stack web developer is usually one who writes front-end and back-end code, but often doesn't have specialization in all areas. But they can do a little bit of everything. So typically a full stack developer specializes in one or two languages, but can still work on other languages. For example, I specialize in writing Python, but I can also write JavaScript as well. What does it take to get into web development? First of all, it takes determination. Learning to code is not hard, but it's big. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say this again. You're going to be learning about 1,000 small steps. And most of these you can Google. You don't actually need to remember all of them. But taking 1,000 small steps, again, it's not hard. It's just big. You'll need to learn how to deal with overwhelm. There is a lot to learn. And again, it's all small stuff, but it can feel very overwhelming just because there's so much of it. So don't try to learn all of it at once. Learn how to code in steps. Take baby steps. I suggest learning HTML first, and we'll get into this a little bit later as well. Support groups are your best friend. You do not need a personal mentor to start. Although if you have a friend who's willing to teach you how to code, that's fantastic. But honestly, you don't need that. Find a support group where you can ask questions without being judged. I recommend the Learning to Code Facebook group. It's free. It has over 55,000 members who can answer pretty much every web development question that comes to mind. And you can ask any question at all. All right, it's also going to take tenacity. You will have hard days. That's normal. It still happens to me, and I've been doing this for over 2 decades now. But you need to push through those hard days. Now, to do that, I suggest building a habit where you learn just 3 new things about web development every day. Even if they're small, useless facts, you're still building up that habit, that sort of ability to continue learning every single day, even when you don't feel like it. That's really, really important. Lastly, practice until it hurts. Practice, practice, practice. Like anything in life, coding is a skill that gets easier with practice. And once you have enough practice from tutorials and courses and other things, make sure you start working on your own ideas. Because if you solve real world problems, chances are you have an idea that's tackling some sort of real world problem. You'll run into real world coding problems and their solutions. And that's valuable. That's what's going to get you a job in the future, is being able to tackle those kinds of problems and find solutions for real life problems.